It was just after 5 p.m. when staff at the county hospital looked up and froze. A large German shepherd walked through the emergency room doors. No leash. No owner. Just blood on his paws, and something urgent in his eyes. Behind him, limping, dirty, and barely conscious, was a little girl. No one could understand what they were seeing. A child, brought in by a dog. And what happened next left the entire hospital in tears. Because this wasn't just any dog. He was her protector. Her shadow. Her last hope. And he had just done something no one thought possible. Her name was Sophie. 7 years old, full of life, always barefoot in the grass, asking a million questions a minute. She lived in a quiet, small-town neighborhood, the kind where everyone waves when they pass. Her parents had adopted a retired K9-unit dog a year ago. His name was Shadow. He had once served on the force, tracking suspects, sniffing out danger, and running into places most people ran from. But now, he was just part of the family. Or so they thought. From the very first day, Shadow and Sophie were inseparable. He wasn't just her dog. He was her guardian, her shadow, always by her side, always watching. At night, he'd sleep just outside her bedroom door. In the morning, he'd follow her from room to room like he was still on patrol. He never barked much. Never begged for attention. But his eyes, they never stopped watching. Not out of suspicion. But out of love. And no one knew just how deep that love went, until that one afternoon. It was a Saturday afternoon. Warm sunlight poured over the backyard. Sophie was playing near the woods behind her home, just like she always did. Shadow was there too, walking a slow circle around her as she picked wildflowers and chased butterflies. Her parents were only a few minutes away, inside the house, thinking nothing could possibly go wrong. But then, something did. A scream. Soft, sharp, and sudden. Sophie had slipped near a ditch, hidden beneath leaves and brush. She'd tumbled down hard, hitting the rocky edge at the bottom. She cried out again, then silence. She couldn't move her leg. Blood was on her arm. Her breath shallow and panicked. No one saw it happen. No one heard her fall, except Shadow. He was there in seconds. He slid down the embankment beside her. Nudged her with his nose. Licked the blood off her arm. Whined softly, circling her small body as if checking for injuries. Sophie reached out to grab him. Her fingers barely held on. And in that terrifying moment, with no one coming and no way to call for help, Shadow made a choice. He wasn't going to wait. He wasn't going to leave her. He was going to save her. Shadow paced around Sophie, his tail stiff, ears high, eyes scanning every direction. No sound. No people. Just forest, wind, and pain. Sophie whimpered. "Shadow, it hurts." She couldn't stand. Her leg was swelling fast, maybe broken. She tried crawling, but cried out from the pain. And that's when Shadow did something no one could have taught him. He crouched beside her. Nudged her up with his shoulder. Gently tugged the collar of her jacket, guiding her upright, just enough to lean on him. Then, he started walking. Not running. Not barking for help. Just walking. One step at a time. Out of the woods. Toward something. Somewhere. Sophie followed. Limping. Stumbling. Holding onto his fur like a lifeline. And when she collapsed again, he waited. Licked her hand. Whined to keep her awake. For miles. That's how far he walked beside her, sometimes ahead, sometimes circling back, always leading the way. Past trees. Roads. Confused drivers. He ignored them all. He didn't stop, until they reached a place with glass doors, bright lights, and the faint smell of antiseptic. The county hospital. The automatic doors slid open. And in walked Shadow. Covered in dirt. Blood on his paws. Panting heavily. But still walking, still alert. People in the ER lobby froze. A security guard stood up, confused. Nurses looked at each other. One of them whispered, "Is that a police dog?" Then, a voice. Weak. Fragile. Help. Behind him, Sophie appeared, barely standing. Clothes torn. Face pale. Blood trailing down her leg. Gasps filled the room. She took one more step, then collapsed. Shadow barked, loud, sharp, desperate. His body moved to shield her as if to say, "Help her. Now." And everything snapped into motion. Nurses rushed over. A gurney appeared. Doctors knelt down, checking her pulse, calling out vitals. One nurse tried to move the dog aside, but Shadow growled, low and protective. He wasn't leaving until he saw her safe. A doctor knelt and looked Shadow in the eyes. "It's okay," he whispered. "We've got her now." Shadow stepped back. Just enough. Then sat. And waited. Right there in the hospital hallway, surrounded by strangers, alarms, and rushing feet. Shadow sat like a statue. Watching the doors his girl had just disappeared through. Waiting for her to come back. Inside the emergency room, the doctors worked fast. Sophie had a fractured leg, deep cuts along her side, a mild concussion, and internal bleeding. They said she was minutes, maybe seconds, away from losing consciousness for good. One more delay, and she might not have made it. While the surgeons worked, Shadow remained where they'd left him. Right outside the operating room door. He didn't move. He didn't lie down. He just waited. Eyes fixed forward. Silent. Still. When Sophie's parents finally arrived, frantic, breathless, they were met with confusion and tears. "Your daughter, she walked in here with a dog," the nurse said. "A German Shepherd. He brought her to us." The mother broke down crying. The father looked at Shadow, his eyes wide, filled with disbelief. That same dog they'd adopted months ago. The quiet one, the old one, the one they thought just needed a peaceful place to rest. Had just saved their daughter's life. For hours, the hospital buzzed with whispers. Doctors shook their heads in awe. Nurses wiped away tears. Someone brought Shadow a blanket and a bowl of water. He didn't touch them. He just stared at the door. Waiting. And then, it opened. A nurse came out and knelt beside him. "She's okay," she whispered, stroking his fur gently. "You did good, boy. She's going to be okay." For the first time that night, Shadow laid down. Slowly. Peacefully. He had done what he came to do. The next day, a nurse mentioned something odd. "If he walked her here, there has to be footage." And there was. Security cameras from nearby roads, gas stations, and even the hospital entrance were reviewed. And what they saw left everyone speechless. There he was, Shadow, guiding Sophie step by step down a narrow trail near the woods. No leash. No hesitation. Just purpose. One camera showed him pausing while she collapsed. He circled back. Nudged her up with his head. Waited patiently. When she stood again, he continued forward. Another angle showed traffic passing by on a quiet road, and Shadow crossing slowly, glancing in both directions, Sophie trailing behind like a wounded soldier following her commander. For miles. For miles of instinct, courage, and determination. People online couldn't believe it. Did the dog know where the hospital was? Was he trained for this? How did he not give up? But those who knew Shadow, especially Sophie's family, didn't ask how. They knew. He didn't need training. He didn't need directions. He had something more powerful than all of that. He had love. And love had carried him and Sophie all the way to safety. Sophie spent several days in the hospital. Surgeries, rest, recovery. And every single day, Shadow was there. Lying by her bed. His head resting on the edge. Watching. Waiting. Protecting, just like always. Doctors called it a miracle. Reporters wanted interviews. People from all over sent cards, gifts, even medals for Shadow. But none of that mattered to him. He didn't care about attention. He didn't need praise. All he cared about was her. Sophie's parents still talk about it like it was a dream. They'd adopted a retired police dog to give him a peaceful life. They never imagined he still had one last mission to complete. One that would save their daughter. One that no human could have done. They now say, "We didn't rescue Shadow. Shadow rescued us." And Sophie? She never lets him out of her sight. When she got home from the hospital, the first thing she did was crawl into his bed, wrap her arms around him, and whisper, "Thank you, my hero." He didn't wag his tail. He didn't lick her face. He just closed his eyes. And exhaled. For the first time in days, they were both home. Sometimes, the heroes we need don't wear capes. They don't march into battle with swords or shields. Sometimes, they're simply the ones who love us most. Shadow wasn't a young, perfectly trained dog. He wasn't a perfect creature by any means. He was just a dog who gave everything to protect the one person he cared about. We often think of heroes as people who wear uniforms, who do big, grand things. But true heroism is in the quiet moments. In the bond of trust, in the loyalty that never wavers. It's in the small acts that make all the difference. The things we don't even know to expect, like a dog knowing when to step up and be everything for someone who needs him most. Sophie might have never known how much her dog loved her, or just how far he would go for her, until that day. But Shadow? He always knew. He knew what it meant to be there for her, no matter the cost. So, what can we learn from this story? Maybe it's that sometimes, love, pure, unspoken love, is enough. It's enough to carry us when we can't walk any longer. Enough to lead us when we don't know the way. Enough to save us when no one else can. And for Sophie, and for her family, it was enough to make her realize that not all heroes need to be human. Shadow wasn't just a dog. He was a hero. A hero who knew that love, above all, is the greatest power of all.